And thank you for being here. My name is April Salisbury, and I am the events manager for GPA Midstream. We are happy that you are here with us today and hope that you are enjoying all of the sessions that you've been able to attend at this conference. We do want to just go over a couple of things before we get started. We want to, our slides are, we'll stop that because the slides are moving. We want to be sure to let you guys know if you want to ask questions during the presentations, you can do that in the question and answer area just to the right of the screen. Type those questions in. Randall Strimmel will be here at the conclusion of the presentation to ask all of those questions of our speaker. If you are participating live at a scheduled date and time, you will receive a certificate of attendance for this session. Certificates will arrive in your inbox about 6 p.m. each day. If you do not receive that certificate, please reach out to myself or Crystal Myers and we will get one sent to you. I would like to ask Brendan, if you will go ahead and unmute and turn on your camera. Brendan Boyle is one of the original founders of Vintri Technologies. Brendan has been serving as the company's president and CEO for the last 3 years. He and his team at Vintri are passionate about and dedicated to helping the pipeline industry transition from documents to data. Brendan is a licensed professional engineer in the province of Alberta and has gained invaluable experience through his career working with key industry stakeholders and regulatory bodies across North America. Being born and raised in Calgary, Brendan possesses a love for sports and the outdoors. Brendan, thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Right on. Thank you very much, April. I'll just bring up my screen here to share the presentation. Thank you, April, obviously, and thanks everyone for joining. Certainly excited to chat with everybody today about this topic. I think this is something very topical, and we're probably seeing a lot of the buzzwords out there: artificial intelligence, machine learning. We wanted to share with you a key step in that journey, shall we call it, the step of data preparation, and showcase to you a little bit about how not only does this act as that one of those key steps towards getting you to some of that great stuff with AI and machine learning, but it's going to bring you value right out the gate, bring you benefits that you're going to see tangible things right away. So we'll talk a little bit about that and go from there. So taking a step back and giving this a bit of an introduction, I'm sure we all have a little bit of the questions are what are artificial intelligence and machine learning? What are these buzzwords? And I think there's probably a million different definitions of them out there today. But one of the things the key thing that I come back to all the time when I think about these is insight. It's how can you use data to generate insight that's going to help you save money, make better decisions, act quicker on your feet, be more responsive, be more proactive and preventative. So really, it all comes back to that concept of generating insight for your business and your operations. Now this is where we want to take that step back and look and say, okay, well, we want to get to that end game. We want to get to those levels of being able to provide that insight to my operations and help run a better business. But we need to understand the step behind that's the concept of data preparation, the concept of getting that data into a usable and trustworthy format that you have. And this can be documentation, data, et cetera. I'm going to speak to that broadly and showcase that to you a little bit as to how we handle it in our solution. But really, it's this concept of getting the data into a way that you can actually bring some trust and accessibility to it for that generating that insight. We had a really interesting discussion and saw some literature about this from some industry partners that they're starting to embark on these digital transformation projects, these journeys to get their customers to artificial intelligence, and seeing that over 80% of those projects' budget are spent on the data preparation. So obviously there's a need to bring some solutions in to get that more efficient and get you to that insight quicker. And the nice thing about it that I'll share through this, as I've touched on, is you're going to see a lot of benefit along the way of just starting this data preparation journey. So another really good way to look at it, here's kind of the pyramid of digital transformation and the journey. And I think the key thing to take away from this is you can see at the top of this pyramid, we're getting to a lot of those really powerful things, the dashboards that we want that are telling us information on a really frequent basis as to how we can do things better. And then on the right side, 3D renderings, 3D visualizations of our infrastructure and assets. These are incredibly powerful tools that can help in many different ways. But I think what's really important to note here is that all of us are at different points on this journey and what we're going through. And it's important to note that as we need to take some of these key steps at the bottom of this pyramid to work our way up. You know, a lot of us, if we look at our existing operations or how we build new capital projects, you know, we may have paper that's going to, you know, long-term cold storage for paper documentation. We may have digital paper, scans of that are turned into PDF that then get dumped into a SharePoint site unique to just that project. And there's no real validation of that information. There's no checking of it to make sure that it fits across the whole picture. And there's no standardization or usability of that information such that it can be stitched together across your whole organization and put into these really powerful tools that can sit at the top of the pyramid. So really the issue is that I think we all want to get to that top of the pyramid, but it's a bit of a challenge, and we need to understand and take a look a little bit into our own operations as to how we can start taking some steps to get us there. Now that's, you know, I think, you know, a lot of talk about data, but you know, tell me a little bit about the value of it and why this is important. And you know, I'm sure you've each seen it to a certain extent in your operations and your business. You know, that there's just such value that can be driven from this. I think we see a lot of the status quo being manual processing of this information. We can make that a lot more efficient. We can leverage data preparation systems to make that, you know, an automated process that can streamline this a lot quicker. For context, there are hundreds of millions of data attributes about a pipeline or a facility that are being generated throughout your supply chain and into operations. It's very difficult to process those through just spreadsheets or documents. So, you know, find those ways to be more efficient there. That's going to save you money there. But let's look at some of these other categories. I mean, you know, how can you be more efficient with your material orders? You know, less risk of having non-compliant material make it to the site or potentially get buried or put into your facility. You can use the data along the way to validate and make sure that doesn't happen. Risk-based inspection is a big aspect of what's coming in operations. A lot of this is very topical right now. How can we generate the information package necessary to complete those risk-based inspections? As we progress into more of the operational analytics, how can we create a data package really quickly and easily to feed into our anomaly inspections or digs that are stemming from various anomaly reports? So I'm sure you can start to see the picture of this is that having the trust in that data and the accessibility of it is going to start driving a lot of value even before we've got into these really powerful analytical things. And another area that I'll touch on too, and I'm sure everybody's seeing it with the transition and changes to things happening with PHMSA and API. There's recommended practices starting to come out of API that are not hard requirements to have full digitization, but progressing that direction. And I think it's, you know, if you can find ways to be more efficient with that regulatory compliance and not have to, you know, work hard to gather all the information, it's just going to benefit you anyways. I can speak to my experience as a pipeline engineer prior to starting this company. I used to spend months on end trying to put together and cobble together data for regulatory responses. And I know it's painful. So, and then, of course, the benefit of building this foundational aspect of data is you get into that, the really powerful artificial intelligence and machine learning analytics that you can start doing. So let's talk about how we get going on this journey. How do we start doing it? You know, and we're all at different stages in this. And I think the important part to note here is you don't need to go and do a massive undertaking and completely, you know, transition your business and your operation. You know, think about if you have a new capital project, think about asking in parallel of your suppliers to, hey, provide me the documentation that you normally would, but hey, it'd be nice to see if you could provide me a spreadsheet or something that would go with that actually provides some usable data that you could then take, run through a data preparation platform such as Vintri Core, which I'll speak to, and start to unlock that value of it. If you're only got existing infrastructure that you're managing, integrity digs, etc., take a look at how you can take whatever you have, run it through a platform to pull the data together, to start to bring some context to it so that you have it really accessible. Think being able to drag a box over a section of your line on a map, and it's going to create a full package of the information that you would need, as opposed to you going and having to search through 20 different boxes, etc. And of course, think of that concept of a data preparation platform that's going to give you some of that context, give you some of that trust, and potentially help you identify gaps in your data and documentation as you have it today. So, I think it goes without saying, but I've touched on this a little bit, that there's obvious long-term benefits to having this, whether it be regulatory compliance or that ability to get to the great analytical solutions. But how about just that accessibility that you're going to get? I mean, contextually, we deal with this with our customers and their projects and their day-to-day. Instead of having to print out, hundreds of binders with hundreds of documents, MTRs, etc. They now have that information loaded to a data prep platform, so they can see the records if they need to. They can see the documents digitally, but they can also pull out little pieces of information, granular data, carbon equivalency numbers, things like that are readily accessible, and you can trend it across the whole project. You can look at all the different areas and find the value through that. You can use this sort of solution, these baby steps that I talked about, to get more supplier accountability. We see a lot of our users and customers with the ability now to identify issues or risks, traceability being a big one there, of material. Did a heat number magically change from step A to step B? Leveraging data prep platforms and data prep, best practices help you catch those before it gets buried or worse into your operations. And then another one of the key benefits of just starting with these data preparation steps is you can maximize the value of your assets. And when I say that, it's, are you looking to potentially sell some of your infrastructure? Are you repurposing it, switching the contents of it, switching the direction? This is, that I'm sure we've all experienced it in some way, shape, or form, that, we're selling a chunk or a segment of our infrastructure, and now we have to scramble to get this information, or that may get discounted. Same thing, you're looking to repurpose a line and change the direction. You have to reapply to the regulator, or, hey, the audits are coming. I need to access this information. Per my example that I said, when we would get audited by our regulator, significant time consumed trying to piece that information together. So you can see some of these benefits that are going to come of having that data readily available, contextualized, and information that you can actually trust. So, just to quantify and summarize that ROI, that return on your investment of embarking on this journey. And I think it's often thought, this is a long process, and there's the value is at the end once I've got this all done into operations. Not the case. You can take these little steps, things like asking your suppliers for digital outputs of things alongside the documentation. These are really easy steps that are going to start to show you that value almost instantaneously on your capital projects and into your operations. It's going to help you when it comes to this TVC concepts, things along those lines, being able to showcase and prove that really easily. Undeniably, this is going to help. So quickly, to give you a snapshot of Vintri and Vintri's solutions and how we're applying this with our data preparation platform, Vintri Core, which you can see on the screen here. It's a data preparation platform. The thing that really differentiates it is it's got some industry specific expertise built into it. This system has the understanding of pipes, valves, flanges, fittings, etc. Be it whether it's a facility, whether it's existing infrastructure, whether it's a new project that you're building. It has the ability to take that data in, no matter how you get it from your suppliers, process it, maintain that record for supply chain accountability, but also create a standard of data across your entire organization. So now you're comparing apples to apples. No longer are you, project X has data like this, project Y has data like that, or even within those projects, different suppliers send data different ways. Now you have stuff that you can actually use. You can start to trend, you can start to analyze, and you can do some of these great things that we've talked about. So this is, it also brings that level of accessibility. Instead of you having to go search for things, maybe you're out in the field, you need information about, again, I touched on it before, carbon equivalency or other key aspects of maybe an MTR. This data is there for you. It's at your fingertips. You can grab it whenever you need it. This data is available offline. It doesn't matter where you are. It's there for you. So kind of long story short of what Vintri does and what Vintri Core and our data services solutions provide to you is it's really helping you take those first steps to get on that journey towards the insight, towards that. But hey, it's going to provide you a whole heck of a lot of benefit along the way, get you some of that value that you can derive from this, help you, get the information into the right people's hands so that decisions can be made better and with less risk. So inevitably, this is highly valuable solution that you can start to see value right out the gate. So some key takeaways from this presentation that I wanted to share with everybody, and things to think about and maybe take away. It doesn't really matter the size of what you're doing. The data is going to be important, whether this is a 1,000-mile mega project or a 10-pipe replacement, integrity replacement. The information that's going to be required to complete those jobs, but also to operate them is going to be valuable no matter what, whether it's a facility, you name it. This is about getting a level of quality of that data and accessibility of that data that will drive better integrity programs, better CapEx use, etc. There's great value in this no matter what you are doing. And the other key point that I want everybody to take away from this is that it's you don't have to jump into this the whole way. I mean, we understand that there's still going to be the need for paper in some areas. There's still going to be the need for digital documentation in areas. This tool that we've provided is very flexible to allow you to get as much usable data out of it as possible. Use that for the valuable analytics and stuff that we can get to. Oh, but hey, attach the documents too so that they become accessible in there. And we know that there's requirements and costs and things like that go with this. So it's key to understand that you don't have to go and do this all at once. You can take some of those baby steps and you will make it'll provide you immediate ROI and then set you up well for the future of what you're doing. So I want to, pose. Eventually, we're going to open this up here to questions shortly from the audience. But I also wanted to, just kind of maybe even frame this a little bit for you and get you thinking a bit about this. I think we have some questions up here that has anyone experienced issues when it comes to material traceability or data availability that has impacted your project or operations? And I would imagine in most cases, the answer is probably yes. But then maybe the follow-on question to that is, are you uncertain as to how a data prep solution, such as what I've presented here, would have helped you? And that, I'd be happy to hear any, situations that people have through the Q&A or comments section there, and also can open this up to just general questions. So yeah, thank you everybody very much for the time. And now we'll open things up to questions.
Hello, everyone. Randall Strimmel here. I'm doing the moderating, and we have some questions that come in. Some of these you kind of hit on, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of really specifically talk about these things. So one of the first questions when you were back talking about your suppliers is, have you seen any additional costs from the suppliers to provide digital records?
Yeah, it's a good question, Randall. There's this is something that we've talked a lot about with our customers, and where we've really seen it is, so a lot of the attempts and efforts in the past have asked suppliers to conform to a specific data standard, which has been difficult for them. They have their existing systems, they have their existing platforms that they use to capture their information about what they're doing in their process, and that's made it challenging. So one of the nice parts about Vintri Core is it does not force you into that. The standardizing is done on the owner operator side, the customer or our customer side. And thus the system can take in any of this information. So really at the end of the day, the findings that we have is minimal to nil in terms of additional costs, because it's just asking them to say, hey, instead of putting that into a PDF, do that, but also just send us your spreadsheet as well as you would have it. You know what data you need to collect for this. And so really we haven't seen substantial additional costs there.
And so your clients are basically telling you what they would like to see as far as the data that is digitized and presented back to them. So they're kind of the one running the process here.
Exactly. That's correct. Yes.
Excellent. So one of the other one was, if we do have an upcoming project, what do I need to do to prep for a digital data package? And I think, they're also talking about themselves prepping, but also prepping their suppliers who are going to be ultimately the ones that are going to be filling this data out to supply to the end user. So can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, that's a great question. And that's one of the things that we do provide as well as our data services team. We understand that this has changed. We understand that this is a little bit different. And what we've done in a lot of cases is, is just help out with the RFP process, help out a little bit with, work with our customers, the owner operators, and say, hey, when you're buying pipe, when you're buying valves, whatever material it may be a little bit more clearer in your language that you put in there. So you're setting the expectation of, hey, we want to provide X, Y, and Z. It can be whether it's a full data template or at least the concept of a digital usable format. And let's call it what it is. That's a spreadsheet. It's helping them understand that a little bit ahead of time so that this stuff doesn't catch them off guard. You can coach the supply chain and educate them on that. And that really goes a long ways towards, setting the project up for success and helping enable this and saying, hey, send us the data, not just at the end of the project, but ongoing throughout it. And then we can run it through our data prep platform. And this is beneficial for all of us because we can help identify any potential gaps or risks as it goes through the project, as we go through the supply chain and the project progression. So really valuable to just have those initial steps of engagement to achieve that.
Right. Absolutely. So here is another one. I know during your discussion here, you kind of mentioned both of these, but, can we use Vintri Core in this technology for facilities and not only pipelines?
That's a great question, Randall. It's absolutely applicable to all of the above. I think the one way of really looking at this is a means to manage data. It's a mean to support integrity, to support quality-centric initiatives that you have as an organization. And at the end of the day, using systems such as ours, Vintri Core is very asset agnostic. It doesn't care what the asset is. We can configure data models for you so that it applies to facilities, compressor stations, pipelines, you name it. All of these have data that's stitched together across the supply chain and through a process of some kind of, whether it's constructing a pipeline, fabricating a facility, whatever it may be, skids, etc. All of these have data that's pulled together across your supply chain and some semblance of traceability that's required within that. And then data that's going to be pulled out of it for various integrity means or operational means. So absolutely, this solution is very much applicable to any of that. And so we're certainly excited to work with our customers on their facilities, their pipelines, you name it.
Okay, now here comes the big one, right? This is the one I've gotten a couple of questions on this one. So I've kind of condensed them down into one question is, I have an existing GIS and integrity platform. How will your system interact with those platforms?
Also a very good question. And I didn't get into too much of the technical aspect of our software solution that we've built on this, but it is built and designed not to replace those systems, but to support them, to feed better information into them. The system is designed with interconnectivity in mind. how can the data that we're processing and managing through your supply chain be fed into those systems automatically? It can be done manually as well, but better ways of doing this so that when you're using your GIS platform or solution, whatever it may be, we're indifferent to that. How can you click on a pipe or click on a valve and all of that information is readily available for you? So to kind of long story short, that my answer, it's all about supporting and making those tools better. Because you have such great data and information as a foundation along the way.
Oh, the flexibility of what we're talking about is fantastic, I think. And so here's another one, which is again kind of going back to cost here and people thinking about this, and I think it's a very, very important question with the aging assets that we're seeing here in the United States. Is do we need to digitize all our archive documents? What would be the benefit of doing so?
Well, that's a good question, Randall, and that's obviously kind of the big scary one for sure, right? Is how far do you go with it? And that's why we talk about it a lot in terms of the baby steps and the progression of this. And we've seen this with a couple of our existing customers, that step of even taking, whether you've scanned in old documentation, drawings, MTRs, et cetera, as a step one, bringing them into a system like this so that they become highly available and accessible. You can report and search and undeniably, we're all going to have to respond to audits in some way, shape, or form. So even just finding ways that you can be more efficient in that, provide an almost immediate ROI based on doing some of that. Of course, there's the big journey that you can go on to embark to start to scrape data out of those areas, get those more fully digitized. And yeah, that's going to be a little bit more involved, but you can really, see what's most practical for your organization. What do you need most of? And at the end of the day, I think my answer to that would be start to look at these simple ways of doing it. It's getting better and more efficient all the time. Start with those baby steps and get some semblance of structured organization to the data, not just a dump of it somewhere. Tie it to geolocation so that if something is going wrong or if you need information about something, you can really easily get there. I mean, I have a philosophy that I want people to be able to access information in 3 clicks or less. That's kind of my thought. And I derive that from my experience of taking 6 months to cobble together how much of a certain size of pipe we had, in operations. So it's that concept is it's achievable with relatively straightforward steps to get you there. And of course you can build on it and go a lot further and move up that pyramid as I showed in the deck there. But yeah, start with some of those small steps and go from there.
And so kind of building on that, a lot of people are talking about digital, aspects of the upcoming technologies and stuff like that. So where do you see AI going from here, in kind of the oil and gas sector? Where do you see it coming into play and the benefits that can be taken from that AI?
Oh yeah, no, that's a good question too, Randall. I mean, that's, and this is one of the things, me being kind of a tech nerd engineer, I can't wait to see this being used in a more preventative and proactive way. I think that's the direction that the industry needs to move towards, and we're trying and we're moving there. But think about starting to overlay data. This is the AI side of things and the machine learning side of things, where take your ILI runs and the anomalies that are being identified on that, or potentially even failures or anything that you're seeing on that. Start to overlay it with this data that you've collected, supply chain data, construction, fabrication, etc. Start to use that to proactively manage your risk, to better identify where there may be problems stemming. Is it a heat number that seems to have repeated, a specific batch of steel? Is it popping up on all of your anomaly reports? Is it a certain weld material or weld procedure that was used that's causing these issues? And this is going to be the foundation of those more preventative and proactive solutions. I'm just touching on one of them with layering those sets of data together. but undeniably, that's the direction that we will trend the industry towards, so that we can, essentially, well, that's going to save you money. You're going to have to do less digs, things like that, but also mitigate the risk and make your infrastructure more reliable.
That is fantastic. It looks like we ran over a little time, but that's perfectly fine. So before we go, we got one last question here. Is and it's basically from a quality standpoint, there's a lot of regulations that are coming. API has a lot of different regulations coming out in the in the aspect of data collection. What needs to be stored? What do we need to hold on to? What doesn't need to do? If as your client comes to you and says, hey, we need to have these points mined, is it easier for you to just do those points, or is it easier for you to collect as many as possible? How many data points and sets would your system be able to do, and the benefits of those points?
Yeah, that's a great question, Randall. I mean, there's you're absolutely spot on that changes are coming in this. I mean, they're not entirely prescriptive yet around having very hard and fast data, but it's trending that direction. And I think the key things to take from that are, whatever data or information is in your control, there's got to be some semblance of readily accessible information there. Oh, and trustworthy too. So the recommendation is that, yeah, you can certainly start with the very much that bare minimum, and that's okay if that's what you need, and that's what it is. But it's kind of one of those things where, like, while you're under the hood working on the car, take a look at some of these other key aspects. Our system can process literally thousands of attributes for a new infrastructure, but it's about finding some of those key points. We can help you kind of categorize almost what's critical for compliance, what's a nice to have, what's it's just there. But so there's really good ways to do that and help you build a bit of a plan around that. But like I said, once you're kind of in there, it makes sense to really start to scrape out as much of it as you can, because you will inevitably start to see value for that throughout your operations.
Awesome. And I think we are out of time here, and we'll kick it back to April, I believe.
Yeah, well, I'll just close out too, if I can, quickly by saying, we've got our slide up here with our company email. But by all means, if any of this is of interest to you, we'd be more than happy to showcase a little bit more of a demonstration, give you some more insight into the great success stories we've had with our customers to date, some of that value that they've been able to see right away. So please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, or certainly we'd be happy to schedule a demo with you to show the product and the solution in action.
Hey, Brendan, thank you. That was great information. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to add, if any of our attendees want or need more information, please go by and visit Vintri's exhibitor booth. They have some great information out there, and be sure to play their game as you have a chance to win a prize with that. So Brendan, thank you. Randall, thank you. And we hope that everyone has a great day. We appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone.